What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to A Certain Point of View, our Schmoedown podcast. My name is Jake Berlin, and we are here to discuss everything in movie trivia Schmoedown. That is right. We are on episode 9 of our show, and as usual, it is not just me today. I have my co-host, Mr. Brian Avalosino. How you doing, man?
Not doing too bad. How about you?
Good. How's your week going? Because we're officially doing, for right now, we are doing mobile. Right, we are quarantine streaming, and this is the first show we have not done in the same room. How's your week going so far?
Working.
Yeah, but you're working at home, correct?
Yeah.
Are you going to the office at all, or are you just home, straight home?
I was there yesterday, and I might have to be there Friday. But other than that, completely.
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm required as we're considered essential. So. I still got to get up and do the whole song and dance every single morning.
Yeah, I tried to do that. I had to work a day like my old teacher schedule, and my brain and body were like, no.
Days don't exist anymore.
No.
Days do not exist at all anymore.
There's no. My body has no sense of time anymore.
Yeah,
it's literally
I totally agree.
It's just all over the place.
Totally agree. So as I mentioned, we are mobile, and as you guys can see, we're using a whole different platform and a whole different setup, and that is thanks to StreamYard, this brilliant service that we have going on. That doesn't just allow us to have fun and do this in different locations, but use different things and that aren't typical, like the cool little ticker at the bottom, letting you guys know that we're not just on YouTube, but we're on audio, and you guys can subscribe and leave your thoughts, and we'd love to hear from you guys and all that good stuff. But so today's show is going to be a little different. It's officially our first show that is full on quarantine Schmoedown, and that means that we only have the one match to talk about at the moment, which is Who's the Boss versus The Odd Couple that happened last week, the last Friday. We do have one match to talk about for this week, but we're going to save that for next week. And like last week, or unlike last week, I should say, we don't have a weekly topic to talk about like we did the exhibition matches or the dream matches. And I will say this, a little side note, I will say this. It is just a coincidence that our show dropped, and then one Mr. Christian Harloff happened to put in the Facebook group, hey, what are some exhibition matches you want to see? I wonder if there's a slight possibility that he got that from this show. I don't know. I would love to think that he got it from this show, but it's just a massive coincidence that our show happened to drop and our title was Dream Matchups and Team Matches. So who possibly knows if that's actually the case? Brian, what do you think?
Hey, fingers crossed that it is. I threw out a couple of my ideas, and one of them actually got picked up. So I'm pretty stoked on that, which is funny because I would have thought the other one would have came before that one. But yeah, I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, the exhibition matches are going to be happening a lot more because they can probably happen via the stream, or they can happen in small spaces with less people, unlike the typical matches. And so we'll definitely be looking into that. But after we get into our match here, Brian is currently rewatching the Schmoedown, and or I guess not rewatching, but going back and watching for the first time. You had not seen the opening seasons. You just caught on the last couple seasons, or I would say like what, last season and a half season?
I would say I came in maybe a fourth of the way of season 6, maybe.
So at the back end of 2018.
Yeah, but yeah, that's probably when I started watching it. But you had been talking about it since we started living together, so
since we met.
Yeah,
I've been watching it from the very beginning. Yeah, I've been watching it from the very beginning. But
I've probably heard about it since season 5 range, I would say.
Yeah, but now that they're uploading everything and everything's on the YouTube channel, you're now going back and rewatching everything, or watching for the first time, I should say. And so we're gonna talk about that just a little bit towards the end of the show. Because it'll be a little bit of a memory thing for me, and Brian kind of gets to express his interest and feelings about what it was like then compared to what it is like now. But until we get to that, let's go and discuss this match here, because like we had mentioned on a reaction, which you can find on our channel, guys, this was by far the biggest teams match we have so far this year. Um, and for the time being, who knows if it's really the biggest team match we may see all year? Who knows? Who's the boss? First, Odd Couple. It's not just four incredible players and two incredible managers and two great factions, but these teams have history, right? They played in Chicago last year. The Odd Couple walked away with the victory. They got the title shot. They ended up winning the title just for a short time. But there's that history. There's also the history of the Roxy Stryer slap that was heard across the world against Ben Bateman. And so there's a lot of hype going into this match because of that. And obviously you have players like Ben Bateman, you have players like Jeff Snyder and the Mark Rileys and the Mark Andrejkos, and they're high profile players. And so this match was, gonna be one of the biggest matches we've seen. And I would say that it lived up to it. Obviously, probably you watched the match by now, so there's no really reasons about spoilers, but Who's the Boss did end up taking the victory, and we're going to break it down here. And so just a little bit of anticipation, I guess. I think we mentioned it on our reaction, but Brian, your thoughts going into this match and who you thought would have came out with it, and if you thought the match did live up to the hype.
It definitely lived up to the hype. I went into it with the Odd Couple. I'm pretty much always going to pick against Finstock Exchange at this point, just because I don't want them to. Is that
because of is that because of points or because you don't like them?
Probably right now points, just because I want it. I don't want to see a lopsided type thing. Like, I don't want it to somehow get to where it's like 25 to 12, and then the rest of the season's just who can get second place, So, I mean, if that's what happens, that's what happens. Because I actually really like Bateman. Like, he's genuinely one of my people I like. Although he's starting to get a little whiny, and it's bugging me a little bit. But the match lived up to the hype. I don't know. I don't want to go straight too far into it.
You're good. You're good. Yeah, I feel you. So let's just get into it. So, first round, it's simple, question for question.
Did you say that you picked Who's the Boss too?
Oh, yes, I did go with Who's the Boss. It was based off of.
You needed.
It was not based off of that. It was based off of how Bateman was playing. You mentioned Bateman. Obviously he's the ex-single champ. He had that run at the end of last year. I felt like Who's the Boss had made a turn towards the end of last year a little bit better than the Odd Couple had. They had played a little bit more than they had, and so I just felt like they had the better of a chance. And whether we want to say it or not, momentum plays a huge part in this, and the Finstock Exchange had a huge part of momentum. They have all season long so far, and so that definitely plays into their side. But I think I mentioned on a reaction, I would have been happy. I would have been happy either way, because I love Roxy. I love what she does with the Rockstars. I love what she does with the Odd Couple. I'm a huge fan of the antics that Jeff Snyder has. I just happen to think that Who's the Boss had the better chance of walking away with the victory, and that's what happened. So
yeah, fair.
All right, well, let's get into this round one. It was very simple. It was a stacked round one, but the highlight obviously was Bateman and Snyder both going perfect and getting that round, that bonus question correct as well. So after round one, it was a hefty 16-16. All four players showing up. It was exactly what we were hoping for. Excuse me, Jesus. And so going into round two, we didn't know what was going to happen, just because we know what strengths and weaknesses are, but we don't know what the spins are going to be like. We don't know what the questions are going to be like. And unfortunately for the Odd Couple, even though they did do well, they spun Opponent's Choice, and they were given Star Wars, which is a weakness of both of Andrejko and Snyder. But man, did they fight their way through this. They went 5 for 6 for 9 points, 4 2-pointers and 1 1-pointer. But the only thing there is that they did end up giving away a steal, but luckily it was a 1-point steal. But I got to say, man, I think we might have talked about it on our reaction. They looked confused and flabbergasted, and just, they looked like they didn't belong in that category, which is exactly what Who's the Boss wanted. but they fought their way through it, and they clawed and they scratched, and they walked away with 9 points, which typically a category that you don't like on an opponent's choice, you get 9 points out of that. That is a win right there.
Definitely. They clawed, scratched. I almost said stole, but that's not really good. I mean, they shockingly stole points away from Who's the Boss that I'm assuming they thought was going to end up flopping back to them. So I guess you could kind of use stole, but I mean, yeah, if you're going to say that that's a weakness and then perform like that, I don't know if that's just the questions, or maybe you're stronger at it than you think you are, because they almost nailed it, like as if it was a category they're good at. So I mean, yeah, clearly they weren't sitting there like answering like it was easy. They were scratching deep into their brains to try to figure out what the answer was. But I don't even want to say they got lucky, because I mean, maybe one or two of them. I think the one that keeps popping into my head was the quote one, where they just went like Yoda, and
the Yoda,
that ended up being right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, they were just guessing at times, but like, if you're walking out of it taking 5 for 6, you kind of killed it. So I mean, the only thing that just hurt them was that steal. I mean, that steal sucks.
And the steal was a number. It was a number question. It was how many TIE fighters followed the Millennium Falcon outside the Death Star in New Hope, and it was 3, 4, 5, or 6, and they went with 3.
Anytime you get a numbers question, I hate numbers questions, because multiple choice is pretty much useless, because you figure it's going to be just 1, 2, 3, 4, and you already know that it's probably around that as it is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure Who's the Boss was thinking they were going to steal probably upwards of 6 points at least. Maybe not at least if they go to multiple choice, but they were probably assuming they were going to come out with more than 2 points.
Yeah, I mean, Riley, they chose it for a reason. Riley is sitting pretty on Star Wars, especially for round 2 questions, because typically because Star Wars questions, the deep cuts are kept for the league. These questions will be very surface level, and I'm sure the camera wasn't on him, but I'm sure Riley was sitting there knowing all of the questions.
Oh, easily.
And luckily, the Odd Couple, they did what they needed to do, right? They knew the questions they knew, right? They knew the Greg Grunberg question. They knew, some questions off the bat, like who directed Rogue One, that type of stuff. And then when they didn't know, you mentioned the quote one, and they went to multiple choice, and the one time they missed happened to be a multiple choice question, which is smart on their part, right? Instead of just throwing out a random number. And so as a veteran team, as veteran players, they played the game how they were supposed to. They fought their way through a category that's not their strength, and they surprised us, because, when you expect this type of match, or in this type of match, you expect a team to give a terrible category if opponent's choice lands on. But I think Roxy might have said it, you get 9 points in an opponent's choice, that's unheard of. And so
you nailed it.
Yeah, and they could have easily been down by more than 2 points, which is what they were down by at the end of round 2, if they didn't play the game like they know how to play the game. And so I was very impressed. I mean,
statistically, they should have been down by more than 2 points. Looking at any past match, probably where you're getting opponent's choice, if you're down by 2, that's unheard of almost.
Yeah, I was very impressed with Andreyko, but I was more so impressed with Snyder, because Snyder has gone on record about just not really being a fan of these giant tentpole movies like a Star Wars or a Marvel. He likes the ones that come every so often, but it's not something that he keeps in his brain. And he was playing the game. He knew exactly what he needed to do. He used his partner, and so round 2 was very impressive, because if you give Star Wars to a team, you expect them to completely bomb, and they were on the total opposite side of that.
Yeah.
All right, so
I agree.
that happens to transfer us into the Who's the Boss second round, and lo and behold, they spinner's choice, excuse me, um, and so the match just felt like it was in their favor at this point,
Yeah.
right? Opponent's choice, spinner's choice. They ended up going with Pixar, which I gotta say, a little bit of a shock that they went with Pixar
Yeah.
because I had no idea that was going to be a strength of theirs. I know that they've talked about it, and Riley's he's a big animated fan, more so with the Pixar stuff, but in no way, shape, or form was I expecting to pick this category.
I almost kind of took this as we are confident enough to take it because we don't want to spin something worse.
That's fair.
That's kind of how I imagined it when they picked it, because I agree with you. When they took Pixar out, I was like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
they're going for this? That's surprising to me. I
Yeah.
would not think that either of those two would want to take Pixar. But I mean, maybe it was a little, hey, there's worse categories that we can have or land on. So let's take it.
Do you think it was a little bit of a cocky, like, showboat move?
I don't think so. I think it was more of, I think we know enough between the two of us that if we spun it again and got on a worse category, we would be kicking ourselves in the pants when we could have probably done Pixar well.
Fair. Yeah, I mean, it worked out in their favor. They went 6 for 6. They got 10 points out of it, 4 2-pointers, two 1-pointers, no steals. They walked away out of round 2 with a 2-point lead with the help of the 1-point steal in the Odd Couples round. They showed up. They showed up. Ben Bateman looked like he knew the question about Ratatouille and the chef's name, which I had no idea about. They
No,
pulled the Wally ship name out of their hat and the
backside.
multiple choice. Riley threw some in there as well. He knew the scored one, and so again, just like the Odd Couple did, they use each other well. They both answer questions. They seem to be on the same page as they have been for a long time, and I was not surprised by how they worked their way through this round, even though I was surprised at the fact that they chose Pixar.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Surprised they chose Pixar. I'm sure a lot of people were, but I mean, it worked in their favor.
Yeah. All right. Well, that shifts us into round 3, which ended up being the fireworks round. As I mentioned, Who's the Boss went into round 3 with the 27-25 lead. At this point, it's already a high scoring match. Anybody could end up walking away with this with just 2 points separating the two of them. Anybody has a chance of winning this game. Anybody. Like, it depends on what categories you choose. The kind of questions you get in those categories. And unfortunately for the Odd Couple, just one slip up. And as we mentioned in our reaction, Star Wars was their Achilles heels.
Yeah.
This game. It was just their Achilles heels, right? So they ended up having. They each go 2-point questions first off to start. So Odd Couple goes first. They get the famous actors and actresses question about old dogs. They get the 2 points. It goes back to Who's the Boss. They get the family films question about the Adams family. They score that point. And then it goes back to the Odd Couple for their 3 and 5-pointers. But the 3-pointer happens to be a question about Star Wars The Last Jedi and who plays Rose Tico. And then happens to be Kelly Marie Tran. They just couldn't pull it. And, this goes back to what I was saying about Snyder and him not really keeping this in his brain. And Draco, just not happening to know the name of the actress. But if you're a Star Wars fan, you know who Kelly Marie Tran is. If you watch the movies more than once, you know who Kelly Marie Tran is. And you also know about all the social media stuff that happened with her last year or 2 years ago. And so the name just kind of sticks in your head. But if you're not someone who avidly watched Star Wars or throws it on every once in a while, or stays in with the Star Wars know-how, Kelly Marie Tran is not going to pop in your head. And unfortunately for them, that was just the one question that just, threw them for a speed bump.
Yeah, it was the Star Wars question that they were probably hoping they wouldn't come across, and just happened to be a case of wrong place, wrong time. And fortunately, it ended up hurting them. Although, I mean, at that point, even if they had gotten it through the rest, I mean, you're probably going to talk about it in a second, but I mean, Who's the Boss nailed all three of their questions.
Yeah,
So
it wouldn't have mattered. It wouldn't
yeah,
have mattered.
but I mean, it 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 just happens. It happens, and it's funny that they killed Star Wars in the second round, but then Star Wars bites them in the butt in the third round. So
Yeah, and missing their 3-pointer had them. They had to answer their 5-pointer, and that was a rom com question for the Jenny Slate film "Obvious Child," an indie rom com. And Snyder knew it the second it was said. It was like a 1-point question for him, and that was big because that made Who's the Boss answer their questions. It knocked off the TKO, right? It took away that extra point, and they didn't just have to answer their 3-pointer or their 5-pointer. They had to answer both of them. They had
yeah,
to answer both of them to be able to win the game. And they did. They answered their 3-pointer, which was a modern classics question for Thank You for Smoking, and a 5-pointer for a disaster film, which coincidence was Contagion. Um, this was filmed before all this stuff happened, but it's just a coincidence that it was Contagion. And Who's the Boss walks away with a 37-32 victory. But the big story here is that they broke the team's record points. The team's points record. That's what I'm trying to say.
there you
Team
go.
points record. That's a hard little thing to say. The previous record was held by a couple other teams. I think Corruption was one of them.
Deep
I
13.
want to say Deep 13 and the Real Rejects, right? All three of them.
Yeah,
So I think all three of them had held the point record at 36.
it's probably more.
Yeah, and Who's the Boss walks away with the 1-point lead over all of them for the record, which is a big deal because I mean 37 points is a lot of points. It's almost perfect,
Yeah,
and I mean, look, it was exactly what we were hoping for. It went back and forth. The story of the match, the turning point of the match just happened to be Star Wars. And it's so funny because of all the controversy going on with Star Wars the past couple of years. It's the one thing that bit a team like the Odd Couple in the butt.
yeah,
And it didn't really even bite them in the butt. They got 7 Star Wars questions and they went 5 for 7. They went
yeah,
5 for 7. Like it just happened to be that 3-point question towards the end of the game that bit them. And like you said, it wouldn't have mattered because Who's the Boss answered everything, but ultimately it could have put pressure on them more and it could have maybe answered them a little bit differently or something like
yeah,
that. And unfortunately, it just Star Wars comes up again and
yeah,
it's just the kink in the shield, if I may say.
yeah, yeah. I mean, can't do anything about it at that point, and sometimes that's the way it happens. And unfortunately, it wasn't the way they were probably hoping this match would go, but that's where it went, and that's where we are now.
Yeah, let's move into the post match interviews because there were some definite fireworks between the two teams. Who's the Boss? Because they won and because they like to put on this little bit of a persona. They gave the good word towards the Odd Couple, saying that they're great. They praise them, all this stuff. When deep down we know that there's a little bit there that's not showing on the surface. They're obviously cheering behind the scenes and stuff like that. But then you flip to
They
the Odd
were
Couple.
they were
Well,
throwing some shade.
I mean, like showboating in your face is what I meant to say. Like they
Yeah,
weren't doing it like in their face; they were doing it respectfully. But we all know that when the cameras aren't on, I doubt it's probably like that.
yeah,
Um, it was the complete opposite for the Odd Couple and Roxy. They
yeah,
went all in on obviously the Finstock exchange and Finstock, but they went all in on Bateman and his antics, and not even his antics, but just the way he plays the game and
yeah.
the mind games he plays with waiting to answer questions and
Well, we didn't even talk
Snyder.
about how he challenged the very first question of the game.
Yeah, and I mean that obviously played into it, and Snyder mentioned it during the game. I think it was like in the third round. One of the questions, Bateman took his time, and Snyder says, he says, "Oh, give him an award for that performance because he was
Yeah,
waiting it off." And we know by now that that's what Bateman does. Like we just know, and so
yeah,
we shouldn't be surprised. But it seemed like the Odd Couple took a little bit more personal to it in this game, particularly just because of the history before it. Do you think of that at all?
yeah. I mean, I'm sure they were doing it to toy with them, kind of because they were beaten by them. They lost to them. So anytime that they can have that upper hand on them, it seems like they were going to showboat it a little bit. The one thing I just can't ever get out of my mind when I see Draco around them is him saying that Ben Bateman has a very punchable face. And it's funny because sometimes he makes you feel like that with that antics that he pulls. And it's true. He has a very punchable face when you get to that level of annoyance. So
Hopefully Mr. Bateman's not listening to this.
I'm not going to punch him in the face. But
come after Brian on Twitter at @BAvlicino. You can see it right there.
No, don't come after me.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's I said it when we watched the match. I felt like it was coming off a little bit like sore losers, just because of the way that they were acting. I understand being frustrated, and as I mean, we're both athletes. We understand the sports side of it and the intensity that comes with it, and the frustration that comes with it if you end up losing, especially to a rival like these two have. But to me, it just not necessarily it came off like they were crying, but it kind of felt like they were whining a little bit, that they tried to make an excuse for them losing, that he was doing all these things, and they were trying to kind of like shift the narrative to him a little bit. And, whatever we may think about the antics that they pull, or whatever player may pull, players play the game differently. Like, that's how they operate. It happens in sports. It's exactly how it happens in sports. And we have to keep looking at it this way. And if that's the case, I don't personally, it's not that I don't think it's okay. I don't personally like when teams go into a post interview. If it happens on social media, fine. But if they go into a post interview and it's kind of looking like they're just, sore losers, or they're crying about it. And like, if they're pissed off, like Aroka has been before, or when Snyder lost his individual match, his singles match, and he stormed off and flipped the bird off, like, fine, like that's cool. But if you're going to sit there and just, throw it into the mic and just blame the other player and kind of whine about them, and not that they were trying to make it look like it was that fault for them losing, but it just felt to me like they were coming off a little bit like they were the sore losers. As an athlete myself, that's what it looks like. And I honestly, I didn't expect it from them. I expect trash talking. I expect, all that stuff, but I didn't expect that from a Roxy or the Odd Couple personally. And that's just me.
And this is where exactly that is you, because this is where you and I differed. I didn't get that. I just got that they were annoyed with Bateman, and that was their way of feeling about it. I mean, they didn't want to sit there and just be like, yeah, we lost and blah, 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 because neither of them are that type of personality. They're not going to sit there and go, yeah, we did our real best and that's all we can hope for. And no, Snyder's never going to act like that. And Draco is not gonna go. I mean, he was probably pissed off since the second Bateman started from the match, because Bateman went after him directly with his challenge.
Elba.
Yeah. So, I mean, he was probably still pissed off from it. And, you're mad. I mean, this is where I counter you is there is in sports, there's always that one player sometimes that is just pissing you off on the other team, where you just like, I freaking hate that guy. And I'm not saying Draco hates Bateman, but in that situation, that was probably what he was feeling. And that one person, especially if they're really, really good or on fire that day, messes with you. And I think that was kind of a case where it just kind of like, just at the end of the match, you lose and you're pissed off. You're pissed off because that person got the better of you. So yeah, I didn't take it so much as whining as more of a frustration type thing. So yeah,
That's fair. hopefully there's no repercussions. I know Andreka was on backstage. I hadn't got a chance to watch it all. So I'm sure they discussed it on there because Bateman was also on there. And I'm interested to see what that conversation was like, and I'll definitely be checking that out. But it doesn't seem like there's any kind of backlash or anything drama wise like there was the previous week with the Pride, and so it looks like we can kind of move on from that. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's the lone match for this week, guys. Who's the boss takes the victory over the Odd Couple. More than likely, from what I'm thinking, depending on how everything shakes out now with the coronavirus and how everything's kind of being postponed. Who's the boss looks to be the next team in line to get that title shot, or at least a number one contender match. Because I would say that for the time being, corruption in the founding fathers. Let's say corruption wins and takes the titles. Founding fathers are going to be able to get a rematch. This is how it works.
Yeah.
And so we may not see who's the boss down the road for a while because of everything going on. But whatever the case may be, it looks like they're the ones next in line to kind of get that shot.
Yeah, it would make sense. Who knows when, but
yeah, it could end up being a while.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, well let's shift gears here a little bit, guys. And as I mentioned up top, we're gonna kind of just be discussing and having like a candid conversation about what Brian's been watching lately. You're in season 1, correct? All the way back.
Are we doing standings after?
Yeah, we'll do standings at the very end of the show. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, so yes. What are the past couple matches that you've been checking out? Because it's kind of be a little walk down memory lane for me.
So I am in season 1, towards the back half, the tournament. That's where I'm at. Trying to think who my last match was. I have to
go on your YouTube's history page.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna go for.
Are they where are they doing the matches? Are they still at Collider?
I think they're not at it.
So is there just a single desk and is there a couch?
Yes, they're doing their matches on the couch.
Those are the best.
Yeah. I don't know if I don't know if I could do it with someone sitting that close to me. Because there are times like
just the beginnings. They were at that's after Buzz.
Well, I mean, I'm saying in general, just like having to think of an answer with someone literally right next to you. I mean, I do it with you when you're here, and if I had the antics of like freaking Makuga next to me, like that's gonna throw me off big time. So let's see. Is that doesn't seem like that was the last one I watched. Yeah, no, it's funny because I am seeing a lot of people before I figure out which one it was. I'm seeing a lot of people I've never seen before. But I've heard names of, and like? That's well, I've never seen JTE actually.
Oh, you've never seen him? You've never seen him compete? Mm-mm. Oh, wait till you're gonna see a lot of him because he and Snyder for the Patriots.
Yeah. So I had never seen him at all. Although it's funny because it took me a while to figure out that he is the same person because Harloff constantly calls him Jate. And so it took me a little while to like figure out, oh, that's JTE that he's talking about. Because he literally does not call him anything other than Jate.
It's like, see, and guys, if you're listening or watching, this is coming from a non-Schmoedown watcher, not understanding where that all comes from. And so it's very cool from my perspective because all I've done for the last 6 years or whatever is I've watched them and I watch them every Thursday night on their shows, and it's so normal for me. So seeing it from your perspective is really fun.
Yeah. So it's funny because it took me a while to figure out Jate is JTE. Let's see. I saw Harloff I saw Harloff compete for the first time. That was against Cody the intern.
Yeah, Cody Hall.
Yeah, and I'm assuming this was the first time he was Dark Harloff because he killed everyone in the studio.
Darth Harloff, yeah.
Yeah. let's see who else. I saw Ellis compete for the first time.
Was he wearing the
Uh,
devil suit?
no,
Okay, you'll see that later
wasn't.
on then.
He wasn't wearing pants. He came in as risky business.
It's that's the Schmoes Knows show, the Schmoes Knows show, man.
Yeah. I was introduced to Cobster for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually one of the matches I had come through was Mark Ellis versus Cobster, and they were talking trash on Cobster the whole entire time, and Cobster almost beat
Yeah,
Ellis.
yeah,
Uh, and then I saw Bonnie versus Makuga. Makuga is freaking wild in the
yeah.
first season. Like,
He's single and not married. Then
yeah, he's like all over the place, and the entrances are nuts. They're nuts because it's like
this
a
is so cool to hear. This is so much fun.
it's funny because the camera's like on the top of like what looks like the end of a hallway. So like people are running
Yep,
across the screen,
yep.
people are coming up and down the aisle. So yeah, Makuga's usually in the back, like directing, but he's also causing chaos. Who else have I seen? I saw Mark Riley versus Alicia Malone.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, I finally saw Katie Sackhoff compete. That was one that I've been hearing her name forever, never seen. And then she went up against Knapsack.
Yeah, she
Uh,
was. Well, I don't know. It might have been at this time. I think it was before him, but she was the co-host of Schmoes Know, which is where her name comes up from.
okay. Let's see what else do I have. Finstock versus Tiffany Smith.
Oh, was
I
it?
watched.
Oh,
He
there.
tried to like propose to her,
Yes, the
and
proposal. Okay, I wasn't gonna say
yeah,
it because I didn't know, but the proposal. Yes, they just had a kind of runaround version of a Schmoes Know reunion this last weekend or last week, and they talked about it because they brought Tiffany Smith on, and
mhm.
every time that Tiffany's around Finstock, whether it's in studio or on camera, like they have this really funny, interesting relationship. They're doing a full on reunion this week, or tonight. Now, by the time this drops, but yeah, their relationship, Tiffany and Finstock, it's so good. The proposal was so. I remember that watching that live. It was so funny.
And he hasn't changed at
No,
all.
no,
Not 1 ounce
he
has he
does.
changed.
So from where you are, there are worse things that he does do down the road, though.
I believe it. I believe it. Who else did I see? I saw Naveed versus okay. This someone who has quickly become a favorite of mine. Naveed played against her was Gray Drake.
Yeah, she's
I
awesome.
really like her.
Yeah,
And then
she's
of
awesome.
course I was like, I wonder if she's in anyone's draft. Whose team is she on?
She on Corruptions?
No.
She on Finstock?
Yes.
Is she really?
Yes.
Oh,
So
okay.
because it's funny because I remember hearing and I constantly see the Gray Drake name on our like Excel sheets and stuff, and I never knew who it was. And I watched this and her name slipped off my
Mm-hmm.
memory and I went to look to see if anyone had her and I was like, damn it. Like I was
Yeah,
like, I'm
she's
trying to
awesome.
root for people not on
She's
Finstock and
like one of the originators of entrances. Like
oh
like full
yeah.
on like bringing
She,
entrances into like the studio and everything. Like
who's
she's one of the originators.
I saw her go play twice. She came in once as Xena Warrior Princess. Oh, who was the other one? I forget who the other one was, but yeah, I like her a lot. Actually,
Yeah,
she
you'll see her
quickly.
more down the road. She was team with Matt Atchity. They were Rotten Tomatoes for a while, and then she kind of disappeared after a while. But hopefully, we see more of her because she's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm in the semifinals, if not like one away from the championship.
I'm pretty if I'm not mistaken, there's two big matches coming up that are in the history books and every time a reel is showed, they're included. Um, it's Blue Fairy. Blue Fairy is one of them, and
Okay.
the other one has to do with Makuga and Matthew Broderick. Oh no, that's the same one. Excuse me, that's the same one. That's all I'm gonna say. It's Makuga, and a Matthew Broderick question that is continued to play in reels for the Schmoedown. And it gets brought up to this day as Blue Fairy. It continuously gets brought up to this day. It's so great.
Okay, yeah, because at this point there are no women left in the tournament, and
Makuga beat Bonnie, right?
No, yes.
Yeah, it was Makuga and Bonnie, correct? Yeah,
because she spun away from, well, not spun away, picked out of a hat away from mob movies, and she was going crazy about it.
Makuga, this is when Makuga was at his best at guessing.
At guessing, not even knowing.
Full on guessing, and you'll see why. I'm telling you, the thing I just mentioned with Matthew Broderick, the guessing, it's awesome. We're gonna have to do this weekly. This is fun for me to kind of reminisce about this because it's so long ago.
I'm actually, I just found. I looked. My next one is Ellis versus JT.
Nice.
That's my next one. Nice. So yeah,
we might have to go back and watch. We might have to go back and watch old Schmoes No shows too.
They're freaking funny.
They're so good.
These matches that I'm seeing are funny because it's just chaos. And the funny thing is, like, I guess it seems like they only have like a certain limited amount of time to do the show. It seemed like it was only so like half of it is Harloff yelling like "shut up" so we can get it under the time, because he's literally like looking at the clock. He's like, "All right, we only have 20 minutes left," and then it's like, "Okay, would you guys shut up so I can get to the next?" Like that's half of what he's.
Yeah, they were allowed to use the studio every Thursday night for like 2 hours. So these matches were during the Schmoes No show. That's when they took place. They weren't like separate. They took place on Thursday nights. Now that the show's no longer a thing, going back and watching now that you're talking about it, like really makes me want to go back and watch all this stuff.
It's funny, man. I only have like 5 more episodes, maybe 6, I think, left in season 1. So cool. They're funny, man.
We're gonna have to if you catch up on them every week, we're gonna have to do this every single week.
Yeah, I'll burn through these probably eventually because they're short. It's quick. Yeah, they're like 20 minutes.
They're not as long as they are now.
Yeah,
because there's not the promotional side of it all. So
yeah, it's cool because now I can finally see like and understand what people are actually like saying when they reference something.
Yeah, that's fun.
Yeah, it's cool. I like it.
All right, well, let's move on to our final part of the show, and that is these team standings. Brian will take this over and read over the standings. What do you got, Brian?
All right, so this is the most updated as of Who's the Boss and the Odd Couple. So right now, sitting at first place is the Finstock Exchange with 16 points. The Den is in second place with 10 points. Swag is in third place with 7 points. Rockstars are in fourth place with 4 points. The Burning Droogs are in fifth place with 4 points. I have a feeling the tiebreaker is the KO because everything else is pretty much. Oh, no, excuse me. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know what the separation is because their stats are pretty much exactly the same.
On the Rockstars?
Rockstars and Burning Droogs.
Yeah, I would imagine it's the KO or possibly. I wonder if Inner Geekdom and Star Wars has to do with it too.
Yeah, because Rockstars have a win and 2 losses, and Burning Droogs has 2 wins and 1 loss. But
I would probably say it's the KO. Yeah.
So Rockstars are 4, Burning Droogs 5. Quirky Mercs are in 6th with 3 points. Usual Suspects are in 7th with 2 points. Corruption is in 8th place with 2 points, but they've had 4 matches to the Usual Suspects 3. And then the Dungeon is sitting in 9th place with 0 points.
Yeah, not a lot has changed since we talked last. Obviously, there's only been 1 match since we talked last, and that's
unfortunately, and Stock's getting more points.
Unfortunately, for the time being, there's not going to be a lot of change week to week because we only get the 1 match. We'll see what happens. For the moment, I believe Harloff said we have matches until May 15th, and so we'll see what happens as far as who and what factions have matches for that time period. But while this is all going on, it seems like there's not going to be a lot of shifting going on, which is unfortunate because I would have liked to have seen a team like Corruption make a run, and just jump some
No,
spots.
you
Or
wouldn't have. A team
no,
like
what I'm
Corruption.
just saying is a team that would usually be there at the top at the end of the year, and in a normal season that doesn't have any kind of issues will get that chance. I want to see those teams like Corruption or Usual Suspects or Quirky Works, who I'm riding with this year, um, to see shifting going on and like a staggering increase of points and stuff like that. But it's going to be a slow burn, and that's just,
Yeah.
we have to face it because that's how the world is at the moment. And no matter how much it sucks for us, um, we're going to have to learn to accept it. And I'm sure that Harloff is tearing his hair out over it as well. So uh, as long as we have it, as long as we have matches, I'm happy with it. It's just, it will be a little bit of a bummer to see to see minimal points moving up and down for factions because of the least amount of matches that we're going to have.
Yeah. I mean, in that aspect, yes, that does suck. Luckily, the exhibitions are going to take a little bit of that burn away because, I mean, season 7 has been a hit. Everyone absolutely loves every ounce of it. The teams, the factions, the everything. So it's nice that even if this year it doesn't play out like it would, people are still going to be excited for whatever comes next from it. So it's kind of nice because if season 7 stunk, it would be a little bit different. But people, and myself included, I know you two, are loving what's going on right now. So it's nice that like no one's kind of just like, all right, moving on. It's more of a like, oh, we can't wait for it to come back because everything's been so good. So having those exhibitions kind of just makes it more fun and makes you keep that hype of like, God, I can't wait for this to come back. So.
And speaking of those exhibitions, we're going to figure out the details because if we do run out of matches, we obviously won't have reactions, but we're going to try to find a way to do whether it's reactions or maybe like a hangout for exhibition matches. Because obviously with them being Patreon only for the time being, we can't have the video up on our video. So maybe we'll find a way to do it a different way and play along and stuff like that. But yeah, those will be fun. I'm excited because they're not just movies and Intergeekdom and Star Wars. It's it's going to be stuff like Indiana Jones or
no, it's not like Indiana Jones because I keep suggesting Indiana Jones.
Well, you don't know what Harloff has written down. You don't know what Harloff has written down.
Although your boy's got his first match coming soon.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's had stuff like Indiana Jones and Back to the Future on his mind for years. Just the capability of putting it together, he hasn't had the time, but now he does. And so he's throwing in ideas, and it seemed like the one of me throwing out the couple idea of a Dan Marone, Mario Konopik versus a Rachel Cushing and a Sam Levine kind of caught scene with fans too. That would be cool to see. Just a little fun match between the four of them. But we'll see.
Couple one people are going to eat up.
Yeah, and it would be fun for sure. Awesome. For sure, it'd be 2 retired players versus 2 current players. So it'd be kind of cool to see that. But hopefully that's a long ways away. Again, we have over a month until we run out of matches. And so we're going to be doing stuff like this for a while, and that's a good thing. So
yeah, I'm excited. Curious to see where things goes.
Yes, agreed. All right, guys. Well, that is a certain point of view for this week. We really, really appreciate you guys joining us, whether it was on YouTube or audio. If you guys checked out the little ticker below, you guys saw that we're on audio and YouTube. So not just here at a certain point of view, but you guys can find us on Anchor, Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, as well as Stitcher, stuff like that. Just search a certain point of view or point of view Schmoedown. It should probably pop up. You guys can also find us on Twitter, where we're interacting with players and managers and fans, posting polls and stuff like that. Doing some cool fill in the blank stuff with the Star Wars thing that Brian suggested, which is really cool. And so follow us there at Schmoedown POV. You guys can also find us, our personal accounts, right there down below our names. And so again, thank you guys for joining us. Brian, as always, this is always fun, man. Hopefully, we're gonna do this for a
You know what
while.
we should have done? I just realized we should have done the head thing to show our faction that we got, that everyone's been doing.
Oh yeah. Now, well,
We'll
we
have
can
to
still
think
do
of.
it. We can still do it.
I don't. Well, you have to get it on your phone. I'd have mine.
I'm sure we can find it somewhere. That shouldn't be a
Yeah.
big deal.
Yeah.
We'll do that. And we'll post it on Twitter, and we'll see if some people want to do that. Fans who haven't found it yet, is that would be fun.
That'd be pretty fun.
I think it's only Instagram only, huh? I think it might be Instagram only.
Maybe.
We'll see. Anyway, all right, guys. There it is. Certain point of view number 9. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you guys next week.